be talking more about the user experience design aspect, and he'll be talking about the technical engineering side. So when I say the word chatbots or bots, a lot of people think of two things. One being Hollywood movies like Her and Ex Machina, where they think about bots taking over the world, they're very invasive and controlling. Or there's another aspect where people think about customer service bots, where they're very, if you call a bank and they're very automated and boring and it's not very conversational. But what are chatbots really? So it's a conversational user interface powered by artificial intelligence and natural language processing. But what does that really mean? So these are two examples. Facebook Messenger, they have one for a couple of different businesses, but this one's for 1-800-Flowers. So you could text this bot about viewing arrangements or purchasing arrangements, just like you would text a friend. And this one's another example in Telegram. It's for Forbes, where you can ask certain questions. This one's asking who is Donald Trump, and the Forbes bot is responding with these answers. So it's a very communicative interaction, so it comes pretty natural to us because I'm pretty sure most of you text friends or family on a daily basis. And so that's why businesses are seeing such a good opportunity here, because you can talk to users in this very personal space without it feeling like you're marketing to them. Okay, so that's why trust is one of the biggest things that I think it's really important to get the maximum benefits out of bots. So this is a chart right here that I took from a LinkedIn article on how we assess leaders and how we think that they're trustworthy. So it's a pretty complex. I'm sure there's even more characteristics that you would look for a person to see if they're trustworthy or not. But here are a few that I think are very vital for when we want to trust bots. So credibility, risk tolerance, efficiency, and being contextual. So we want it to give us the right information at the right time. And then these are some things that we should really think about when we're designing the personality of a bot. So why is trust so valuable though? So the more we trust the bot, the more likely we'll be able to share and seek information from the bot, and the content that the bot gives us will believe that it's more credible. And so in terms of consolidating data and learning statistics, I think that humans are more likely to make errors. So if we, for example, if there's an enterprise bot that tells us about the most recent purchase orders and gives us solutions about what we should do about the next one, if more we trust this bot, the more likely we'll believe about the solutions that it provides to us, and then that gives us time to do other things and gives us more profitability and productivity. So in terms of user behaviors, the first thing that I thought about was tolerance. But I actually found that a majority of users actually are very satisfied with the basic purpose of the bot. So for example, if this is a weather bot called Poncho, you wouldn't be asking about what are the, different complicated questions besides the weather. But there is a small portion of users, such as engineers or people who are very knowledgeable about this, that will try to break the bot and ask very complex questions. But this is something to note if you're designing a bot. So we as humans are very social creatures, and we love to interact and react with others. So I thought this was really interesting how humans still feel the need to have social cues and mannerisms, even when they know it's a bot. So here you can see a user saying, "Thanks, Pancho," even though you know that this is a bot, and you don't really have to say thank you, but people still do that. So I think that's really cool if we think about this when we design how we shape conversations when designing a bot. So we actually applied this to a real-life scenario, use case. Hana House, it's a workspace owned by SAP. It's here in Palo Alto on University Avenue. It's a place where people can go in to reserve a workspace by hours, so a meeting room or an open seating. And I did 2 sets of interviews. The first one was, I didn't even mention bots. It was about just understanding the current needs of these customers and what their situation is, how they make reservations. And in what I found was their biggest pain point was extending reservations. So right now, if they want to sit, they reserve for the hour, and then their hour is over. Someone will come to them and say, "Okay, your hour is over, would you like to extend?" And if they would want to extend, they have to go back onto the website and make a new reservation. So that was something that they felt that, it's kind of time-consuming, even though it only takes a few seconds. The next set of interviews I did was created a bot simulation. And this was actually, we did this without using any engineering. So for those of you who are designers, but they still want to learn about how people interact with bots, you can do this without engineering. So what I did was I thought of all the possible conversations that people would have when making a reservation. And with that, I made pre-made responses. And so I had different sorts of responses of how you would say, "Okay, this is confirmed," so you could have different conversational ones like, "Oh, happy, reserving," or something like that. And so what I did on the day of was I had a colleague with me, but I went to do the interview, so I asked the user or the interviewee to make a reservation. I handed them my phone, and on the other end was my colleague responding with pre-made responses. So this was not an actual bot, but we wanted to keep the experience constant by not making sure that my colleague is just texting like a human being, because then they'd be too smart. So it was actually very good responses. Out of 10, one being I hated this experience, 10 being I loved it. It was a 7.4 average score out of 8 people that I interviewed. Only one person rated it below a 5, so it was really good. They really loved that it was conversational and natural. The conversation was very seamless and straightforward, which is great because their first impression of bots were very automated, kind of boring. And one of their biggest feedbacks was they wished that the bot would remember their personal preferences. So for people who reserve, some people go on a daily basis and they don't want to have to type the same command every single day, or not command, but the same sort of text every single day. And so it'd be nice if the bot starts to remember, like, oh, would you like to make this reservation again? So that's where I guess the artificial intelligence and machine learning comes in. Also, I guess most of you would know this, but everyone wants to, provide the least amount of effort possible. So they don't want to be texting long text. I'll show you in this example. I'm sure you can't really read the context, but at a glance you can see the blue is the user, so it's very short and direct responses. They don't want to be texting long text, especially to a bot. One of the biggest things was formatting. You can see in this bubble here for time, even though we prompted them with an example of like 1, 7, or colon 00 p.m., they just want to do 1, 2 p.m. That was one of the biggest feedbacks that they kept saying. You can see at the end here, this user still says thank you. So, it's still something that's a big part of this conversation. So what does this mean for the future of bots? It's still really too early to tell, but it is a developing relationship that will be really interesting to watch. So I think that as long as the bot provides the purpose that it's supposed to, and it has a certain level of intellectual ability, and is able to understand the context that you're supposed to do, the users will have a positive user experience, and they'll definitely start to trust the bot more. And I feel the more that we trust, the more that they'll start relying this bot, and the more we can get the maximum benefits out of it. So now Leo will talk about the tech class. Oh yeah.
Yeah, so thanks, Shae. Let's talk about the technical side. How can we actually build those bots? Really from the technical or engineering point of view. And usually we have to ask ourselves, how can we understand bots? How can we understand the users? Or how can our bot understand the user and really perform the action that the user is actually asking them? So since we are usually lazy, there are frameworks for that because other people have the same problem. And there are 3 different types of frameworks. Number 1 is messaging apps, like Facebook Messenger, Telegram, and Slack. Those are like a ready-made environment where you can develop a bot and then you can already use it or deploy it in that Messenger app. So that means, first of all, you have already a lot of users. So for you can reach a lot of users with one simple action. And for the users, they're already using that app, right? So it's really simple for them to use it actually. Then second of all, we have digital assistants. Those are actually not chatbots, it's something different. So main difference is one, of course, you talk to them instead of chatting with them. And then they're usually, they offer like a huge functionality, so you can do so many things with them. Whereas chatbots are more like for one specific task. On the other hand, the things that chatbots do are more like complex tasks. Whereas here with digital assistants, like with Alexa or Siri, you just ask about the weather or about sending a text or about calling someone. Then further of all, for chatbots, there are so many channels for them. So you can see where, like in Messenger apps, via text, via email, there's so many ways to talk to chatbots. Whereas with this assistant, you have only this one app where you can talk to them. And but check out the Riff Labs, especially because they have recently a really awesome demo on TechCrunch. And it seems like they're finally getting somewhere where they can really understand a lot more things and more complex things. And then further of all, we have natural language frameworks, which are pretty much, are probably inside those other 2 categories. But it's just the basic frameworks for us as the developer for understanding users. So then we can build our own user experience or user interface on top. So let's talk about those especially. the way they pretty much work is we provide some examples, and here we can see some example flow for how to make a reservation in HANA House. So we just type in what we're using, like say, so we want to make a reservation, and the bot has to know like the date, the time, for how many people. So we just go by example. Based on that example, it can actually learn to understand people. And pretty much what they do is, first of all, they look for an intent, which is, for instance, in the very first example, the intent meaning what action should the bot do. In this case, it might be do a reservation, do a cancellation, or maybe answer a question about HANA House. And then in order for more detailed information, we have entities. So we want to know, for instance, on what date the reservation should be and for what time it should be, for how many people. And those frameworks can already detect most entities really well. So especially those things that everyone has to use. It's like dates, times, numbers, places. They can detect it. But on the other hand, if you have a custom thing like your business user ID, they won't detect it. So you have to train it. So coming back to the user experience, this time the experience of the developers, it's really easy for us to start with those frameworks. So we just have a few examples and then it's working already. So it's easy, it's fast. But on the other hand, it's as well easy to break those things. So, and once they break, you don't really know why they break. So it's kind of a black box for us. It's kind of tough then to like improve it. The only thing you can do is kind of contact the support. They might know what's going on, maybe not. And so in case we were to try to build them on our own, one thing they use, and we can use as well, is pretty much keyword search. So we just look for certain keywords, for instance, for the reservation. So the word reservation or desk space, I need, I want to get. And with simple stuff it works. Like here, it's obvious that this is a reservation query, the bot will understand it. But then once you have something a little bit more complex, like saying, okay, I have a reservation, but now I want to cancel it. The bot will still find the word reservation and say, oh, of course, it's a reservation query. So in this case, it will still fail, and so we have to get to a certain point where we really understand the users more. And then for detecting the entities, we use regular expressions. So we just define a certain pattern. It's kind of a grammar, really. So in this case, we are looking for numbers, and specifically for the numbers of people for those we want a reservation to be. And so we just say we have a preposition, a number, and a noun, and that might be the number we are looking for. On the other hand, this would not trigger, when you say I want to reserve a desk for my 12-year-old daughter, it wouldn't trigger because there is no preposition. So coming back to the most important question at all, we have to ask ourselves what is in it for SAP. And so thinking about chat itself, a lot of young people already use it, and I think it will like grow and be more important in the business world as well. So that's definitely a thing to look out for. And second of all, bots can really help us with doing complex tasks. Just think about a service center. You can just replace a full hotline service center with chatbots. And if they're good, they can understand any language. They can work all night, all day, and no complaints about working hours. And so I'm definitely stoked about what's going to come next to chatbots, and I hope you are too. Thanks for listening. And in case you have questions, go for it.
I think the first question regarding the bots, you mentioned about trust. But the way I see it is really kind of a perspective, kind of a kissing in perspective. Because you make the bot as a robot, of course trust is the issue. But why you make it explicit? You can make it implicit. Meaning people don't even know they're talking to the robot. The trust is no longer an issue. So they just realize this is our main service. They know what I want. They know how to do things. I think that's probably better model to pursue.
guy spoke to one of the haunted house customers during an interview. He said he bought a car through a bot. So he was like saying how at first he didn't even know if it was a really human being, but then he could tell on the way the conversation was going that it was just like not completely human. Or I mean, I guess you can just kind of tell. And then you could tell that when he started talking about like the deal, the numbers, it turned into just completely more like natural conversation. So you could tell it was a human. But I mean, you're right. I think in the future, maybe we won't even know if we're really talking to a human or not.
Yeah, because one people care about inclusivity,
Right.
right? So that really, they're not really there to engage some intimate conversation, just getting done.
Yeah. I think this also goes for more of like enterprise bots, I believe. When it's coming to your own finances or your own HR, you really want to be able to trust it, or else it's giving you solutions for your own business, and you don't want to. I think from that situation, but I agree with your customer service. It might not be as. Okay, we can do one more quick question.
This isn't, I guess, that quick. One of the things with trust is how do you prevent this from profiling? I mean, if you're using statistics, you can use your basic demographic statistics of a particular person, but what if they're not typical of that particular group? And as a woman in technology, and I'm not young, that kind of thing really concerns me, because a lot of older people, not even older, middle-aged people, have been really concerned on the web with getting advertisements for things like hemorrhoid cream and Depends and stuff like that. I mean, it sounds silly, but it's actually kind of a concern, and it's a little bit sophisticated to filter that stuff out.
Okay, I really didn't get the question, or like.
Do you think that's more of like the bot, like designing the bot, or do you think it's more of like the technical, like getting the data, right? Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, it integrates the two.
Yeah.
It's not, it's not how I can say, listen, some of this stuff that is more difficult than you think it is.
Yeah, so it's. I guess it's always easy to start with young people and then make them use it.
Okay, thank you so much, guys. Please.